The topic of student loan repayments has been a major talking point, especially during this election cycle. Now, just today, the Biden administration announcing an additional $1.2 billion in student debt relief. Here to explain it all for us in his first interview since the announcement broke this morning is U.S. Secretary of Education, Dr. Cardona. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Thank you so much for being here in South Carolina.
Happy to be here.
We'll get straight to it because we know that you have a tight schedule.
Sure.
$1.2 billion for student loan relief. How will this work?
Well, look, when the president took office, he made it very clear we had a broken higher education system, a broken higher education loan system, and he charged me with fixing it. To date, across the country, we've provided over $169 billion in debt relief, close to 5 million people across the country, working class people that need a little bit of relief. The most recent announcement, $1.2 billion, includes public servants. We have teachers, nurses, police officers, veterans who've served the public, served the community for over 10 years, have paid their loans for over 10 years, and they're getting debt relief. You know, here in South Carolina, the total from day one till now has been over $3 billion back into the local economy here in South Carolina, thanks to President Biden.
Mm-hmm. So this announcement comes just weeks after a federal appeals court allowed the U.S. Department of Education to move forward with lower monthly plans for student borrowers. It was supposed to take effect July 1st, but then you had federal judges in Kansas and Missouri that kind of put a stop to it. Do you all feel that you will be back in court again with this additional $1.2 billion?
I do. Look, here's another example. Let me just break it down in just common sense terms. We had over 1 million people going into default every year. They couldn't pay their loans. Too expensive, too high. The president said, you know, fix that so that people can pay back their loans. So we created the SAVE plan. It lowers the monthly payments, but you still have to make your payments. It just lowers it. Right. We have Republican officials, different parts of the country trying to stop us from doing that. We want people to be successful paying back their loans so they don't go into default. Yeah, we do anticipate that this is going to continue. It's going to allow people to make their payments. Yesterday I was in Georgia and I spoke to teachers there who said because of that plan, they're able to make their payments and buy groceries. Like, that's what we want. We want people to be successful paying back their loans.
Mm-hmm. And to that point, earlier this month, the South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson filed an emergency application with the U.S. Supreme Court to stop the SAVE student loan repayment plan, which he called unconstitutional. Many other Republican leaders across the nation are kind of saying essentially taxpayers have to foot the bill. Now, is there any merit to that, or what do you say?
You know, that's almost comical. Look at people in South Carolina that are struggling to make their bills. Look them in the face and say that. They're trying to make payments based on their income levels. You know, if they don't have the money to pay it, they're going to go into default. That's going to hurt the community. Mm-hmm. You know, when you talk about taxpayers, I wonder if they also support the tax breaks that were given to the billionaires in the last administration. We have a plan. People making millions and billions of dollars should pay the same tax rate that teachers pay. That'll take care of it. But there's an unwillingness there to look at some of the challenges and the inequities that we have. At the end of the day, we want people to be successful paying back their loans. We want them to be able to pay it reasonably. We also believe that higher education shouldn't be a lifetime of debt. And we're doing things in the Biden-Harris administration that are being challenged by Republicans too, like holding colleges accountable for a good return on investment. Making sure that if someone's paying tens of thousands of dollars a year for college, that they should be able to get a job where they're making enough money to pay their bills. So we're increasing accountability, making payments more affordable, and providing debt relief to public servants the way a bipartisan 2007 bill proposed it. We're just following what the Congress asked us to do then.
So what do you tell some of the Republican leaders to let them know that this money, taxpayers, it's not coming from taxpayers, they're not footing the bill? What do you explain to them?
That's political theater. What they need to do is let's come together. Let me hear your ideas. This isn't a red or blue issue. This is a borrower issue. This is a student issue. This is a higher education issue. We all want our students to have access. Come to the table. For 3.5 years, I've been saying, come to the table. You know, I want to hear their ideas. I know we can work together to help students find success in education. Education should be bringing people together. The reality is, and I'm going to be frank, you know, look, education has become a place where they insert politics to create culture wars, to create division ultimately to privatize schools. Look at their playbook that they just put out there. They want to destroy public education. And as a product of public education across throughout my whole career, you know, public education is what opened doors for me. And I know so many students here in South Carolina benefit from strong schools and access to higher education. That's what we're fighting for.
For the last question, when it comes about student loans, there are some, we've been hearing throughout this election cycle, some people are saying, oh, it's not fair. I paid my student loans.
Yeah.
I did this. I worked hard. Why should the Biden administration give some students a get-out-of-jail-free card?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't consider it a get-out-of-jail-free card. You know, I think, quite frankly, dropping charges that were proven is a get-out-of-jail-free card. But what I would say to those folks, and I respect the different opinions, and I've had conversations with Americans across the country about this. So this is my perspective on this, and I'm glad you asked that. We have a problem. Intelligent students, including students from South Carolina, rural communities, students who maybe are not born into wealth as well in the urban centers, don't have access to higher education in this country. If we're going to compete internationally, we have to level the playing field. So higher education shouldn't be a sentence for payment for the rest of your life. We need to make it more affordable. We need to improve the return on investment. We're doing something about it. Now, to those folks that say, well, I paid my college loans, or I didn't go to college because I did that, because of the cost, my message is, so did I pay my college loans. I want my brother to do well. I want my neighbor to do well, because it's going to help the economy. College graduates, on average, earn $1 million more over the course of their lifetime. So for me, this is good for our local economy, for our national economy. And for those that say, I didn't go to college because of that, that's what I'm trying to fix. I want everyone to have access. And it's not just, you know, we got to break this 4-year college or bust mentality we have in this country. I want to increase pathways to careers, to trades. We're working on that. The Biden-Harris administration is working on that. So to those folks, I would say, look, we're opening pathways and making it more affordable for all. That's going to benefit everyone. And then the last thing I would say about that is, you know, while we're trying to open up college pathways, I want those folks to remember we're helping middle-class Americans that are working hard. Where were the complaints when we bailed out the airline industry, the automotive industry, the banking industry, these billionaires that were making money? We're helping hardworking Americans. Don't complain when we're providing $10,000 in relief for a teacher that's been working 20, 30 years. Complain more when we're bailing out these billion-dollar industries. Like, it's political theater. We're here for the middle-class working people in this country. Those are the people that we're looking out for.
Shifting gears a little bit now, back in January, Governor Henry McMaster opted not to have South Carolina participate in a federally funded summer feeding program. The governor said there's other feeding programs in place, trying to move away from COVID-backed programs. Are there any other COVID funds linked to South Carolina that we haven't taken advantage of?
I just think it's appalling. There's federal dollars to help feed kids, and you're going to say no? Look, the American Rescue Plan kept the colleges in South Carolina open. The American Rescue Plan that President Biden put in a month into his administration, 2 months into his administration. You know, and we need to come together on this, but I'm going to be very honest with you. Facts matter. Not one Republican voted for it. Yet it kept the colleges in South Carolina open. It provided billions for education funding to get social workers, psychologists, mental health providers, fix air conditioning systems in our schools, provide reading support for students that were struggling, provide meals for students that were hungry. The American Rescue Plan did that. As it's sunsetting, the responsibility becomes, how do we keep programs that we know work in the state? But it doesn't mean we're not going to use those dollars that were there for that, especially when we're talking about hunger. I mean, listen, there's nothing more important than making sure children are okay, and feeding children to me is not something that we compromise for political posturing.
For the final question, Secretary, the topic of book bans, what's allowed in classrooms, has reached a fever pitch all across the nation. Here in South Carolina, Department of Education has a policy in place that kind of, some people call it a book ban, some people call it a restriction as to what can be inside the classroom. Should this be set aside to the states, or should the federal government have a policy that we all follow, especially dealing with public schools?
States and local. Look, I'm the highest ranking person in the country in education, and I believe strongly that it should be a state and local issue. I do. I was a state commissioner, I was a district leader, a school leader. the federal government has a very limited role, and it should stay that way. With that said, parents do have the authority and the right to communicate their concerns about what is being taught. But one parent shouldn't be deciding what the whole state is reading. It should be done by our boards of education, by our state leaders, and again, this issue has escalated because I believe there has been intentionality around creating culture wars and division in our schools, division in education, so that when you're selling private education through vouchers, which I think is happening here, you have parents saying, yeah, there's problems over here, let me go over there. This effort to privatize our public education system is, pay attention to that. And I want the folks here in South Carolina to recognize, when you develop two systems, a public education system and a system that's private, that tuition is paid for, and it's a competitive market, it's going to be more difficult to educate students that have a lot of need. So they may not be as welcome in those private institutions, and then only public education will be addressing the needs of those students with less dollars. We don't pay our educators enough, we don't resource our schools enough, so let's make sure we're supporting our public schools.
So I'm hearing there are some concerns that you have when it comes to possible school choice and voucher programs and all that?
Very, very bluntly, I think the voucher program across the country is going to gut public education. When you're paying teachers a salary that's 25% less than people with similar degrees in other professions, and then you're taking money from that pot to put it to vouchers where those schools could be selective on which students they pick. Do you think students with significant disabilities are going to be welcome the same as the students that are high performing? Of course not, because it costs more to educate those students. And if you're making education a competitive commodity, you're removing the public good that it does, and you're removing all the things that public education provides, like it provided me an opportunity to escalate to the point where I am today.
All right, U.S. Secretary of Education, Dr. Cardona, thank you so much for coming.
Of course.
We really appreciate it.
Of course, good to be with you.
Stay up to date with this story and more. Subscribe to our Watch Fox YouTube page. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click the notification bell to never miss an update.